Okay. Your statement on your father's retirement.
Well, Dad, happy retirement. As you can see, many people have come out to wish you well, and I as well wish you well in whatever you choose to do.
Oh, well.
Whether that be sitting at the computer or traipsing through the mountains of Switzerland, whatever you choose to do, I hope you enjoy it. And come back to St. Thomas's or some suitable facsimile like the Italian church on Ossington as soon as you feel it's necessary. Good luck. A few minutes.
Well,
he doesn't.
I went on for about 15 seconds.
15 seconds is good. Whatever you feel like.
Just that I've so appreciated his ministry here, personally as well as collectively, and particularly going to miss the sense of humor. Saved me from absolute death at a few corporation meetings a few years ago.
Good, thank you. 15 seconds of meaningful words.
15 seconds of
Well, you don't just have 15 seconds. If you want to talk more,
You're very close to me, actually. I mean, am I in your
It's the
range?
intimidating camera.
Am I in your range?
Yep. Okay, go ahead.
This is a very special day, but it's only a token of all the gratitude that the parish feels for Father Hoult. 22 and a half years, it's really hard to know how it will be without him.
Okay.
You can say all the things you wanted to say to him all this time.
I don't know if he's had enough glasses of wine for that yet.
I heard. Are we on?
We're on.
I hardly know what to say except stop that nonsense comes to mind. It's been just a terrific 12 years for me as an organist, as a church musician, to work with somebody that's as astute and sensitive to liturgy and good liturgical practice, and sensitive to great music and how it works hand in hand with liturgy. And I know I'm going to miss it terribly in the rest of my career, and wish you all the best.
To say all along.
All the things that I wanted to say. Well, it's nice to see the Holt boys here with their haircut. That's certainly a revelation to all of us. And it's nice to have Roy with us. He's like the corpse at an Irish funeral. Necessary, but not expected to say much.
Excellent. Bingo. Father Hoult, thank you for all your years of service, all those fine years in the great liturgy, but most importantly, for your contribution to the Acolyte Guild through Neil. He's a concrete underpinning of the Guild.
Being featured a lot in these statements.
I'm being paid for this. For a chance to say whatever you've always wanted to say.
About your father?
Exactly, yes.
Oh.
Angry, harsh words.
Oh, dear, I think I'll be sincere. It's been a pleasure working with your father. I think that the turning point in our relationship was when we went to do Myers-Briggs personality type, and the person running it was the infamous Betty Kilbourne, a woman priest with wild hair and makeup and whatnot. And we did our little test, and we had our forum of personality types, and neither of us believed that we were the way we were. And Betty Kilbourne, without knowing either of us very well, said, "Oh, to me, you're always balancing 16 different things at the same time, and trying to do too much." And she said to your father, "You probably sit at your desk redesigning the liturgy all the time." And the look on his face was wonderful, because she saw right into him through this Myers-Briggs, and so it helped us actually understand each other better. And I think, he said the whole advisory board should go. So that was a turning point, and from then on, I think, we worked very well together. Of course, you always work very well with a person when you decrease your amount of work over the years, as I did, so that's it.
Excellent. Yes, it can be good, bad, or indifferent.
Oh no, it's going to be a... you got me. My mind is elsewhere at the minute, John, because I've got to...
Okay.
Gather around the
It's
podium.
going to come out
There are seats if you're infirm or tired. Wicked retirement. Remarks with the same entry I used, or beginning I used with Father Freeland's anniversary. Friends, Anglicans, High Churchmen, we come to praise Hoult, not to bury him. And Father Hoult wasn't here for that, so I guess it's all right to use that again. And we hope we won't have to bury Father Hoult for some time. I'm sure he feels the same way. Retirement is, as the RRSP salespeople tell us, a new beginning in life, a new chapter in life. And I've done a lot of retirement speeches because I teach school and all of my colleagues are fleeing like rats from a sinking ship. So I suffer from what is called P envy, pension envy. But we are indeed here to praise Father Hoult and Diane with him, and to wish him and Diane bonne chance. Notice my French. It's the only 2 words I've learned. As they begin a new chapter, a new phase in their lives. Now, I'm not going to give a full-blown speech. I wasn't asked to do that, but I couldn't resist as MC saying a few words about my colleague, Father Hoult. Roger Hughes will do the serious speech later. I'm not sure how serious it will be. But these are my some personal observations. I hope you'll forgive me, but I need to do this. So, Father, get ready for the celebrity roast. No, not really. I think it's true to say that other than his wife and children, I have known Father Hoult longer than anybody else in this room. Really? You don't believe me? And I think we were somehow fated to work together. Because about 30 years ago, when I was a callow Anglican youth, growing up in the town of Penticton, British Columbia, Stockwell days riding, I got to know some fellow callow Anglican youths. We called ourselves the Anglican Youth Movement because it was the 60s and 70s, so AYTA, Anglican Young People, sounded too conservative. And Penticton was about 2 hours south of the town of Vernon. And a number of my friends, my fellow callow youths, were from Vernon. And they spoke, I remember still, in hushed and reverent tones of their parish priest, Father Hoult. And as luck would have it, when I was about 14 years old, I, with some of these young people, attended the Eucharist at All Saints Vernon, where Father Hoult presided at the Eucharist. I hardly remember anything at all about Father Hoult. I remember that he wore a beautiful coat, and something I'd never seen before in my low church upbringing. I didn't even know what it was called. I think it's the coat he still has. But I do remember how much nicer All Saints Church was than my church in Penticton. The colors in the church were beautiful. They were muted, I think greens and browns. They were lovely. And there was a striking altar front, which had on it, as I recall, sunflowers. It was quite gorgeous. Now you may ask, what does this have to do with Father Hoult? But in fact, this, I think, speaks volumes about his ministry in Vernon and his ministry here at St. Thomas's. For I found out later that the renovation and redecoration of the nave and sanctuary at All Saints Vernon was very much his baby. It was very much influenced by him. And it reflected, I think, his impeccable judgment in all things liturgical. The interior of All Saints Vernon still pops up in my dreams. I don't know what a psychiatrist would say about that. But it obviously had a powerful effect on me. So indirectly, Father Hoult was an influence in my life 30 years ago, just as his careful, thoughtful ordering of the liturgy here at St. Thomas's has positively influenced thousands of people. Now that's not the end of the story. Sorry, I'm going on a bit. About 10 years later, 10 or 11 years later, in my first year of divinity at Trinity College, I came to St. Thomas's one of the first Sundays I was in Toronto. It was very warm, I remember that, and I was wearing a tweed jacket, and I'd already bought a Trinity College tie and Trinity College cufflinks and a hat. And here I encountered the legendary Hoult dry-witted response, what I've called behind his back one of his zingers. Very full of myself, somewhat fatter than I am now, quite the Trinity man, complete with my blazer and tie and cufflinks and everything else. I strode up to the rector at the door and told him proudly that I was a candidate for the priesthood of the Diocese of Kootenay, that my ordination was assured, and that I was very interested in hoping to procure a curacy in his former parish of All Saints Vernon. He looked me up and down, probably just up, and said, "Oh, I can't do the accent, but I don't think you'll like it there very much. It's not a good place for your curacy. No money, no money. A lot of snakes in the Okanagan, you know." He gave me a funny little smile, as much as to say, "You'll find out, callow young man, how the church really works." And he was right, as he usually is, even about the snakes. The ecclesiastical variety. Another 5 years passed in my life. I was rector of a rural parish north of Toronto, and I heard that the associate priest position at St. Thomas's was open. Fortunately, I was not too tall, so Father Hoult hired me. That, at least, is David O'Rourke's explanation as to why someone like me would be hired. And so began the third phase of Father Hoult's influence in my life, one that has lasted a bit more than 15 years, and one that I have, at least 99.9% of the time, enjoyed and valued. When I started here at St. Thomas's, Father Hoult said, "You will probably do well here because you seem to know how to read between the lines. Don't expect me to tell you what to do. If you see something that needs to be done, just do it." The Nike slogan. And it is the trust that he had in me and the freedom that he gave me to set my own pace and find my own projects, including returning to teaching, that I have most appreciated in Father Hoult as a colleague. On a personal level, I have deeply appreciated the support he's given to some of the causes that are most dear to my heart. And he knows what I mean. And I have enjoyed immensely his rapier wit and keen intellect. There has never been a dull moment, or seldom been a dull moment, especially in the vestry. I must add that it has been a pleasure to be associated with Diane Hoult and to watch Colin, Jonathan, and Neil, each in his own unique way, grow into manhood. One of the difficult things about being a rectory family is that you are watched, continually watched, and commented on. And I think Diane and the boys have borne that sometimes difficult task with grace and fortitude. And now they have their own homes and can enjoy a bit of hard-earned privacy in their lives. Sorry, privacy. Many of you will remember the former church warden Jack Burton and his wife Gail, who sadly for us both died in recent years. Jack was confined to bed when I was first in this parish, when I first met him, and one of my first duties as an assistant, as an associate, was to take Jack to communion in hospital. He was still a very powerful and very opinionated personality, a true churchman in every sense of that word. After I gave him Holy Communion, we chatted for just a few minutes, and he said, not entirely in jest, "Don't trust anyone at St. Thomas's." Perhaps I have followed his advice a bit too well, but I am grateful to Father Hoult for trusting me in the work that he has given me, and I would like to publicly thank him for that trust over the years. It has been most appreciated. Well, I'm almost finished. No parish is perfect, and no parish priest is perfect, although if you look at the job descriptions for priests, you'd think they would have to be. We all have our strengths and our weaknesses, which are a part of the glory of God and God's kingdom in this place. But God loves us, and we are challenged to love each other, not as bagfuls of assets and liabilities, but as whole people. The relationship of a priest, his or her parish, is based on that, on one of acceptance, accepting strengths and weaknesses, and working for something greater than themselves. I would not, and could not attempt to sum up the over 20 years of ministry that Father Hoult has had in this parish. One could talk of the very, very fine changes in the liturgy, or of the renewal of the organ in the church building, or of some other accomplishment. Those things are very important, but they do not get to the core of a priest's ministry. I will, however, dare to say one thing, and this is a very personal response. I am convinced that during Father Hoult's incumbency, this parish church has become more inclusive, more trusting, has become more open to the Spirit of God in our midst, more aware of the urgency of the Gospel's call to discipleship, while at the same time holding true to, and indeed enhancing, what is most central and enduring in our Catholic tradition. Thank you, Father, for your leadership. Sometimes volunteer for the selection committee. It is my hope and prayer that your successor, whoever it is, I dare to say, will build on and extend the firm foundation that you have constructed during the last 24 odd years. Thanks very much. Now, is the bishop here, the archbishop? He's supposed to possibly make an appearance. And he has to leave at once, so we don't need to worry about that. Roger Hughes will now make a serious speech. Roll up. I think so. Is there a bishop in the house?
I'm not the bishop.
You're dressed like a Roman Catholic bishop's friend.
I think Neville Bishop's down there.
I'm here to address you as Roy's friend. Rob said I had 5 minutes. And being a lawyer, it takes that long for me to talk about myself. So I decided there were 2 things I could do. I could talk very quickly, but then you would have confused me with Willem Hart reading that. Or I can go on rather long. You can guess who that would be. But let's talk about Roy. For those of you who want the details of Roy's life, I commend to you Earl Barnsley's piece in the Household of God. He did the writing and Ruth Bailey did the thinking. You'll know the minutiae of Roy's life, the size of his trousers and jacket and all that sort of thing. I'll just hit on 2 or 3 of them. He was born in a place called St. Helens, which is a suburb of Liverpool in England. He just missed being a Beatle. Served in the RAF and also served in the Abbey. I hadn't realized that until I reread that he was actually there, not one of those stone people lying flat, but where I think he got imbued with the sort of liturgy that we have today. He moved to British Columbia, where, as I understand, he proposed at a distance to Diane Riddell. And she got confused with the phone calls and then came over here and married. Good grief, it's Roy. And had 3 children, and it's nice to see them with their hair cut today. Did anybody recognize Jonathan? Let alone Neil. The other one they kept hitting. He's over in England having a bath or being in Bath or whatever. And Roy, of course, spent some time in Victoria and then went to the interior of British Columbia, as Rob's told us about. And from there moved to St. Thomas's. Now, Roy was born on Whitsunday, and some of the theological people can tell us all about that. But he moved to St. Thomas's on Labor Day, as it's celebrated in England, May 1st. And I think Stuart Niemeyer knows a clever little limerick about that one. He'll tell you later. And now here he is at St. Sebastian's Day. St. Sebastian's Day. Yes, it's a Catholic holiday. I did the Anglican one on Whitsunday. I did the Labour one for May 1st, so now I'm doing Catholic. But you've suffered over 100 slings and arrows and still survived. And that's whereas one vicar has put it, over 100 sermons from curates and still survive. I was interested in the one about faith being the carrot at the end of the tunnel on the road to Damascus. That's still way up at the top. But there's a little vignette about Roy coming to St. Thomas's that I can share with you. He was laboring away in Vernon, British Columbia, not liking it very much. And at the same time, St. Thomas's was looking for a new rector. And apparently the discussion between the dialogues of the respective dioceses went something like this. And they said, well, we have one candidate here, Roy Hoult. But the Bishop of Vernon said, I don't know whether you like him too much. He considers that the main service in the morning should be the Eucharist and not the Matins. At which time the Bishop of Toronto said, that's our man. He's come here, and of course, survived and done wonderfully well. I'm going to point out 3 things that I think Roy is suitable for. remarks. Where is Virginia Main from? You know, the Anglicans are too. You're either smells and bells or slappy happy. And it was really nice to come back to the service this morning and sort of be uplifted by all of that. And that's Roy. It was wonderful that you did that. The second is the homilies, of course, and I never tire of hearing them. They're recited several times. The one about the dogs. Just a terrific one. I could hear it forever. And of course the music, to which Roy doesn't contribute in his voice, thank goodness, but certainly nourishes among it. These are just wonderful, wonderful things that we have here. I want to just digress for 2 minutes and become a little personal. I want to give you 2 vignettes from my life that Roy intersected. One is, he was giving a series on the early part of the Bible. I think it was Bible for Idiots, I think you were giving. I understood a little bit of what he was saying. But at the end of one sermon, he said, and next week, I'm going to tell you something marvelous. Something I don't think you've ever heard before. And he preached from the 6th chapter of Genesis. There was a time when giants roamed the earth. Do you remember that sermon? It's wonderful. I just struck me. The time when giants roamed the earth. And the second little vignette I'll give you is when Susan and I were married. Some people suggested we're not, but actually we did get married. Here in this church, and I made a terrible error. I had asked a pal and I to sort of preside over the wedding. That was a mistake, but there. But Roy said to me, I'm happy to have him there. I'm happy to give him some vestments. And there'll be somebody standing at the back, watching and smiling. And of course, that was wrong. So here are 2 things. Here's a giant and somebody quietly standing in the back, watching and smiling. And I think those 2 things sort of combine, at least in me, what Roy's been all about. So when tonight you go home, tuck yourself in, just remember, you've done good.
We now have a offering from the choir. The choir will sing a mildly satirical ditty. So if they could organize themselves, wherever you like. Wherever you like.
Using close-up covers. Close it up.
Walter Harding, I think, was part of this too. So,
Well, you heard from the choir, and there's the acolytes, and it's interesting in the choir's little song they talked about finding an empty pew somewhere through the smoke. There are actually some people from the choir who have joined the Acolytes Guild, and I've laid down an edict that they can never be thorough.
louder please.
But on behalf of the Acolytes Guild, we did want to make a little presentation. A number of traditions that have occurred for many years during Father Hoult's tenure, and it includes gift giving, it includes a photograph, and a party. And these have revolved around a time known as Epiphany. This year we missed Epiphany, at least as far as having an Epiphany party sponsored by the Hoults by a few days, as the rector retired the end of December and the Epiphany party actually happened on the 5th at Father Neelan's. So regardless of that though, we still wanted to continue with this, and in trying to think of a retirement gift for Father and Diane, it was Epiphany that gave us the answer about what to do. Now there's actually two gifts. The one that's nicely packaged is for Diane. And I want to make mention of the fact that at Epiphany in the evening we would come for the solemn evensong Epiphany carol service, which would highlight in that time frame. Afterwards, traditionally we had a photograph taken of the acolytes in the sanctuary, and then, hopefully if people stayed to clean up, then hordes would descend upon the rectory all at once, and there in the rectory would be food and drink laid out, and it was the only time of the year, in essence, that the acolytes actually were served. The lot of an acolyte is to be a server, and throughout the year with the many and various festivals that occur, acolytes go to rehearsals, they do this and they do that. So while we were in the church playing solemn evensong, etc., of course the Father was there. Who do you suppose it was that was in the rectory preparing all the food for us to descend on it and consume it? Something like this table behind here that has very little left on it. So in thinking of a gift for Diane, the word that came through was hospitality. So on behalf of acolytes, both present and past over the last 22 years, I have this gift that I'd like to give you on behalf of the Guild, which has a hospitality theme to it. Sure. Why don't wandered in there. It's a pretty dangerous place, actually. But the other thing I think that a lot of us are really appreciate about St. Thomas's is the sense of history. I really enjoyed 1993, where we looked at the centennial of the building. And we all have a sense, I think, of history. In the Acolytes room, there are 4 very special pictures. I brought one of them up, just in case you've never seen them. This one's dated 1908, and it's a real professional job. There's a couple of people in here you've probably heard of, a fellow named Gerald Larkin and C.G.S. Stewart, both as servers from 1908. There are 3 other pictures around the same time frame. And I think that these are real treasures of any parish, church, institution, what have you. And I thought it would be really nice if we were to have a professional photo taken at the end of Father Hoult's tenure at St. Thomas's, and have it professionally done, archival type quality, so that it will last hopefully at least 100 years. Maybe in 100 years someone will be looking at a photo that we took on Epiphany before the party at Father Nealon's. It's a fairly long process. We're about stage 3 of 5 of actually producing a large print on archival paper, etc. The other thing that's very special in this photo that I arranged for the rector, and in particular, is that Neil is found in this picture acting as a subdeacon. So this is not the finished product. This is stage 3 of 5. I thought maybe you might like to look at it and look forward to getting the finished framed product. Thank you. Oh, Neil's smiling in this one as well.
Walter, you had some comments to make on...
This follows on from what was said about Diane's gracious hospitality. The parish received a letter from a friend of Father Hoult, and I'll read it to you. First, congratulations on your retirement. Perhaps now I may be permitted to address you less formally and simply call you Roy. A friend of mine sent me a set of guidelines issued by the Office of the Archbishopric of Toronto, taken from the manual for the retirement of a married clergyman, and I thought they might be useful to you. And here they are. First, if thou ownest a petrol carriage, thou shalt forthwith give it to thy wife for her use alone. If thou ownest 2 such carriages, thou shalt give thy wife the newest thereof, and you may keep the older for thyself. The encumbrance of the carriage of the twain thereof shall be solely for your account. 2, thou shalt arise early in the morning and prepare a repast for thyself and for thy wife. Should thy wife tarry at home and not proceed to her labours, thou shalt carry the repast on a tray garnished with all, and carry it to her in her boudoir, so she may rest from her daily toil. If the snow shall fall, thou shalt take up thy spade and shovel thy path, and also thy neighbour's path. And if thy wife must proceed from your dwelling to some place of employment or shopping, thou shalt also sweep the snow from her petrol carriage, and start the machinery therein to create a warm and cozy sitting for her prior to her making her departure. Thou shalt then proceed quickly to do thy daily chores of cleaning the utensils and dishes used in the eating, clean all the floors and furniture within thy dwelling, not forgetting the necessarium and closing the lid thereof, and washing up both thine own linen and that of thy wife. In order to keep thy body healthy, thou shalt proceed out of thy place of abode and promenade roughly a distance of 120 furlongs at the least thereof. Thou may, if thou wish, runneth the distance, but in either case
thou must return in time to prepare the evening meal for both thee and she. If the snow continues to fall, thou shalt again take up thy spade and clear a path for the parking of the petrol carriage, attending again to thy sidewalk and that of thy neighbour. Following the evening meal, if thou dost observe together the entertainment provided by the television, thou shalt offer thy wife the chance of the play ye shall watch. If thou so desire, and after ye have completed thy various works, ye may proceed to thy dungeon, and with respect only to thy miniature railway, and only to that, engage in much coupling and uncoupling. And finally, remember frequently to tell thy beloved how much she means to thee, and show forth thy affection with flowers and other enticements that may excite the heart. Oh, by the way, I made a mistake. It's signed with all my love, Diane.
Now, on behalf of the parish, Stuart Niermeyer will make a presentation to Diane.
If my few words seem to begin with a digression, they do. Over the years, my college students have redefined the world in terms of people, places, the Bible, and ideas. For example, for people, we've had the German socialist Karl Marx, the philosopher of children, Plato, and the American actor Arnold Schwarzenegger, a man who is extremely macho. For places, there has been the Middle East and the familiar African countries of Tuna and Zambonia. Biblically, we have had the Book of Geniuses, the symmetric Gospels, which we heard this morning or not, and the Old and New Testaments. But for ideas, one is incontrovertibly true as it applies here and today. Behind every successfully man is a surprise woman. At St. Thomas's, we have known, and today we thank and honor, a very special, successfully man. And we have also known, and today we thank and honor, a very special and dear lady who is not a surprise, Diane Hoult. Diane, we thank you for 5 things. Happen to spell your name, I think. For your devotion to all your family, to their places, and to this place. For your intensity. For your achievements and your nature as an accommodating presence here, as an expert in computers, and as a gracious hostess. And we thank you for your equality of character, depth, humor, and vision. And so, on behalf of us all, I am happy to present this gift to you, Diane, with our very best wishes and our very great affection.
Bishop Archbishop Finley has been to join us.
It's a great privilege and a pleasure to be here and to have the opportunity to roast Diane, I want to say to you and to the family that you've put up with a great deal. And you have our sympathy. You have our thanksgiving for all that you've contributed to this great journey here at this wonderful parish. And I want to express that on behalf of all of the bishops, their gratitude to you and to the family, because they know a little bit about what families have to go through. And we're grateful for all that you've contributed. Thank you very, very much. And then there's Roy. And what can one say, Father? Speechless. I too am grateful for your ministry, for your gifts, and for your life and witness, not only here, but to many, many parts of the Canadian Church. I'm going to miss you, but I know that you're not far away, and I will look forward to continuing our journey together. But again, on behalf of the bishops, and particularly myself, thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your wisdom. Thank you for your preaching. Thank you for your insights into the gospel. And for the continuation of a great tradition and a great history in this parish. Thank you very much.
Mary Sutton will make a presentation to the rector.
I knew that a great many things would be said today, so I've decided to let those stand as they were said or sung in Father Hoult's honor. And I just want to say to him, look around this room and you will realize with what great regard and with what affection you were held. We're going to miss you, but we know that you will be with us in spirit. And we have some outward and visible signs of our feeling for you, and we'll struggle on with how shall we do this?
The bread maker.
Oh my goodness.
I thought, oh. But then I thought, it's the wrong scale. But here we have one that's the right scale and a real beauty. My model railroading is my hobby, as many of you know. And so this will be a great addition to the fleet. Thank you very much indeed. My goodness.
You have the floor for the last time.
Well, there's been so much said that I feel that I ought not to prolong this anymore. One of the things I will not miss about St. Thomas's is the heat. Now, as soon as the summer gone and the heat is put on in the church and in the hall here, and the heat is something I suffer from terribly, and I wasn't really prepared for this event this afternoon. It's something like the Festival of Nine Lessons and Caroling. But there we are. First, quickly, let me say a very big thank you to all of you. The great diversity of the family, which is St. Thomas's, and of which we see a good many people here today who represent that diversity. Thank you all very much. Obviously, I cannot begin to name the number of individuals who have been so helpful to me during these 20 years. Someone once said, at St. Thomas's, Father, if you want the laity to help you, you don't have to ask them. They'll just come forward to do it. And that's been my experience. Of course, it takes a certain kind of leadership to allow the laity to do their thing. And that hasn't always been available. But I hope that that's one of the things that I feel good about here, is that a number of very different kinds of people have been able to participate as fully as possible in the liturgy and certainly in the life of the parish. Thank you, Roger, for your comments earlier. Seems hours ago now. Roger is one of those people who has been a really good friend to me in my life. While the Archbishop is still present, I'll remind him that once he was talking to us clergy, the deanery clergy, about how it was a good thing if a parish priest had a support group. And of course they all looked pretty blank. And so I said, well, I have one. Well, he looked even more astonished. And he said, oh, who is it? Who composes it? And I said, the church wardens. Well, that he almost passed away. Because he knows how in so many parishes, the incumbent and the church wardens are in one kind of struggle all the time. One or another kind of struggle. Here, one of the great privileges I've enjoyed has been an excellent relationship with the church wardens, right from those early ones, some of whom are still around, right through, and we change them every year, you remember, so it's a difficult business. But always, our meetings have been rigorous, but honest and helpful, to me certainly, and I think to them, so that they've all enjoyed time as a church warden. Naturally, I'd like to thank the clergy that have helped me during my time, particularly Father Freeland and Father Neelands, who've been here most of my time. Father Neelands came in my early days. Father Freeland, of course, has been here from all eternity. And the several others who have helped throughout my time. I had no idea that Rob Ross had known me for 30 years, did you say? Goodness me. This is a mere child of 14. I'd never known that until this morning. It was quite a bit of a shock. Now for you comes the exciting and challenging time of selecting a new incumbent. I hope that it will go as smoothly as you can possibly imagine and have the best possible result. But I also know that it can be a difficult time. At the moment you're going through preliminaries, but in a little while you'll get down to the business of interviews. And I'd just like to tell you a bit about my interview here. Some of you know this story, but I honestly
exhort the present selection committee to warn their candidates of the circumstances. Because when one day I received a letter from the Bishop of Vancouver, New Westminster as he's called, telling me that I was not going to the parish of St. John Shaughnessy, which I'd hoped to do. We spent, me and my staff, that was the sexton and my secretary, they were morning people. They arrived at 7 and departed at noon. And as they were going out of the office at noon, I was rather sort of disappointedly fingering through the rest of the mail. And most of it was sort of junk mail, as we now call it. One was a big envelope, and at the top was stamped Bishop's Room, Toronto. And I thought that was a bookshop. I thought all this package were lent. And so I opened it, and as my secretary and sexton were leaving the office, I said, "Hey, you guys, wait!" And it was a letter from Bishop Garnsworthy inviting me to allow my name to stand for St. Thomas's, Huron Street. I was just, the breath was taken out of me. But of course I noticed that names had to be in by that day. And in BC we're 3 hours behind and so on, you know. So I phoned my bishop in Kelowna and asked what I should do. And he gave me Bishop Garnsworthy's secret telephone number. And I phoned him on Castle Frank. It would be mid-evening by then. And of course at the other end of the line came that great big bass voice, "Yes." As I explained who I was, and the reason I was phoning was that I'd received his communication that day, but of course it was too late. He said, "No, it's not that. Put your name in anyway." Now, I don't know whether you've been to the Okanagan or not, but there, in wintertime, it's very, very cold. Great skiing country. And so you wear a parka, and great big fur boots, and what have you. And parishioners are quite used to you coming into their house, taking all this stuff off at the door, and walking around in your stocking feet, and a lighter sweater perhaps. Suddenly, come May, it becomes burningly hot. 100 degrees Fahrenheit on the streets of Vernon is not unusual at that time of year. And so you can't wear the traditional sort of black clothing. You have to cast all that off and wear shorts and a light shirt or something. And so my first worry on coming to an interview at St. Thomas's was that I had nothing to wear. So I went to the local mall where there was a gents' tailor's. And I went in, and this man looked at me as though I was dirt, because I was in my gardening sort of clothes, if Monday. And I explained to him, he looked as though he was about to say, "We don't sell jeans here." But instead, I said to him that I would like to buy a suit. And so he brightened up at this, and I said that actually I wanted a kind of discreet suit. I never thought they'd have a black one, so I said, "I'd like a dark grey suit." Dark grey? Nobody wears dark grey anymore. It's impossible. And so I then confessed who I was, and that I would really like a black suit. And within 3 weeks, he said, "Oh yes, that's the height of fashion." And within 3 weeks, I got a suit made in Toronto. Came to Philadelphia. And so here I was, all dressed up. Now, to travel from the west coast to here, so as to arrive by sort of 4 or 5 o'clock in the late afternoon, you have to fly down from Kelowna to the coast the night before. So dressed up in my best black suit, I travelled down and stayed in a hotel on the airport. And having the whole evening before me with nothing to do, I phoned an old friend who now taught at the Vancouver School of Theology, Jim McCullum. And I explained where I was and what I was doing. And when he heard what I was doing, he said, "Wait right there, I'll be right out." And so he drove out from his home in around the University District of Vancouver, bringing a large bottle of scotch. And he told me everything he knew about St. Thomas's, because his brother and his brother's wife were members of the congregation here. And there may be people here who remember that. Having talked all about about various churchy things and whatnot for a good hour and a half. He said, do you have anything else to wear? I said, what do you mean? I've gone to an enormous amount of trouble to dress like this for this occasion. He said, believe me, he said, I go to Toronto frequently. He was on that General Committee meets you meet there 4 times a year. And he said, if you go dressed like that, you'll have no peace. Every distressed woman and man on the plane will be coming to talk to you throughout the flight. He said, by the time you get to Toronto, you'll be in no condition to meet with the selection committee. I said, well, I've got a sports jacket and some flannels. He said, wear that. He said, and when you get to Toronto, just off the arrivals, that where you've picked up your bag, he said, there's a gents. He said, go in there and change into your black suit. Well, I don't know whether you've ever tried it, but it's a very small accommodation. I nearly called every muscle in my neck trying to change into this suit. And I arrived down outside the Royal York where Jack Burton and the other warden with him met me and took me up Huron Street. And as we got to what they called Fort Hook, right outside the window here, they suddenly said, get down, get down, get down. You can crouch down. And after we safely crossed Sussex, they said, it's all right, you can get up now. Eugene Fairley was standing right and we passed by the church and they took me to the Park Plaza, to the bar up on the roof. And after one gin and tonic, they took me out onto the outside area there and showed me all the kingdoms of the world. Then Jim Burke and Jack Burton took me back inside for another gin and tonic and said, Father, do you have anything else to wear? Well, I think it exploded because of where I was. I just didn't know what to say. They said there were so many old ladies with binoculars to see who they were interviewing, that they would like me to wear civvies for the rest of my stay here. So my precious brand new black suit spent almost its entire life in my case. So for heaven's sake, the selection committee, tell the candidates what you want them to wear. The sequel to my interview here was that in several months' time, they apparently chose me. I didn't have the slightest hope of it, of course, because I was the outsider. And Bishop Garnsworthy told me later that he was a little uncertain about it too. And so he consulted his friend the primate, Ted Scott, who had been the Bishop of Coopney before I went to Coopney, but he knew me from the West. And Ted Scott said, oh yes, excellent choice. Well, Lewis Garnsworthy was not one to be persuaded easily, and so he still worried about this. And so the next morning, and Mary knows the name of this person, and I always forget it, he said to his archdeacon in the office, he said, you know somebody in Vernon, don't you? And so his archdeacon admitted that yes, he knew Art Sovereign, who was our children's doctor. And he said, phone him and find out the goods on this royal. And so the archdeacon did. And Art Sovereign said, well, he's done wonders for this parish. He's looked up no end. It's never been better. But he and I have one, and it's not the bishop, as Roger said, it was Art Sovereign. He said, he and I have one fundamental disagreement. He thinks that the typical Anglican service of a Sunday morning should be the Eucharist. I think it should be morning prayer. And Lewis Garnsworthy, overhearing that, said, that's our man. If I may may say one serious thing about your forthcoming activity is that the bishop was kind enough to say when I talked to him recently that I've been the rector of St. Thomas's through two of the most difficult decades of modern church history. Well, you know, I don't think it's going to get much easier. I think the next decade is going to be just as difficult, if not more so. And I have found here that what people are really looking for is a capable teacher. Not an academic necessarily, but one who reads still, and one who tries, not always successfully, to convey that modern knowledge to the ordinary Christian folk in a congregation which is very, very varied. When I was a young man, they looked in a new parish priest for one who was good with lads. The girls didn't matter. Nowadays, one looks for somebody who's good with children or something like that. Good with intergenerational worship or something of that sort. I beg of you to look first of all for someone who will be able to explain to you what's at stake in the challenges that are presented to Christian faith in the coming 10 years. That's the sort of person I think you ought to be looking for. But as you know, I can't be involved with it any more than that. Thank you, Rob, for what you said and for your support over these many, many years. I hope you'll enjoy the rest of your year in France. There are two angels I'd like to mention in conclusion. Father thinks I'm the only person apart from him who believes in angels. But as I said to you at Michaelmas, I think they come to us in different guises. And two angels that have come to me in my time here. One has been Barbara O'Brien. Is Barbara here? When we were left without a permanent secretary anymore, Barbara came out of the blue, out of the depths of the congregation, and volunteered her services. She immediately took over the things I was doing. She did twice as much as anybody else had ever been doing. And she's carried on doing that until now. She more or less runs the whole place. She was a volunteer, and only at the end of a year, when Willem Hart was church warden, did he discover how badly she needed pay. And it was only then that we started to pay her for what she does. And the other angel that appeared, again right out of the blue, again at a time of difficulty, is John Tupper. I was phoning him to get his advice, because he was then the president of the Royal College of Organists, or whatever it's called, to get his advice about who we could get to fill in, you know, Sunday by Sunday, until we found a new permanent organist. And he said, well, I wanted to talk to you about the job myself. I said, oh? And he said, yes. He said, how soon can we meet? I said, well, it's up to you. When would you like? He said, how about first thing tomorrow morning? And John has been here first thing in the morning ever since, and it's now over 10 years. That seems impossible. John, thank you. It's been 10 years of the most wonderful music for me. You know that church music was part of my original vocation, and it's been great to end my ministry in a place where it's done better than anywhere else I know. I listened, there's a miracle of my new computer. You can listen to BBC radio. And so the other morning I listened to Choral Evensong. It's funny listening to Choral Evensong in the morning. And it was from Britton Cathedral. And on Christmas Eve I listened, it was a live broadcast, and on Christmas Eve I listened live to the Festival of Nine Lessons Carols from King's College, Cambridge. And I want to tell you that, frankly, we are better. see me sneak into one of the specials quietly after it's begun and leave quietly before it's ended. You'll forgive me, I hope. Now, as a finale, Father Neil, this may not be possible. We were wondering if the choir could once more, since the bishop is here, pull together your, is that, or the people left? One, as a kind of reprise.